The glass doors of First National Bank swung open on a busy Tuesday afternoon. Maya Johnson walked inside, her sneakers squeaking softly on the polished marble floor. She was 16 years old, wearing her favorite hoodie and jeans. Her backpack hung over one shoulder, looking worn from daily use. The bank was full of people. Some stood in line waiting their turn. Others sat at desks talking to bank workers about loans and accounts. The sound of voices mixed with the clicking of keyboards and the beeping of computers. Everything looked professional and clean. Large windows let in bright sunlight that made the marble floor shine. Maya looked around and found the line for the tellers. She took her place at the end, behind a woman in a business suit who was checking her phone. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a deposit slip she had filled out at home. In her other hand, she held a white envelope. It was sealed and felt thick with the money inside. She had been planning this trip for weeks. The money in the envelope was important to her. It represented 6 months of hard work, late nights, and countless hours in front of her computer. Maya felt proud but also a little nervous. It was the first time she had ever deposited such a large amount of money. Behind the counter, Derek Matthews was finishing up with a customer. He was 35 years old and had worked at First National Bank for 10 years. He wore a pressed white shirt and a blue tie. His name tag shined under the lights. Derek had always been good at his job. He was fast, efficient, and rarely made mistakes. But over the years, something had changed inside him. Derek had seen thousands of customers come through his line. He had started to make quick judgments about people based on how they looked. He told himself it was just experience, that he could spot trouble before it started. But really, he had become cynical and suspicious. The woman in the business suit finished her transaction and walked away. The line moved forward. An elderly man stepped up to the next teller. Then it was Maya's turn. "Next," Derek called out, not looking up from his computer screen. Maya walked to his window. She put her deposit slip and envelope on the counter. "Hello," she said politely. "I would like to make a deposit, please." Derek glanced up. His eyes moved from Maya's face to her hoodie, then to her worn backpack. His expression changed. His eyebrows went up slightly and his mouth formed a thin line. "Are you sure you're at the right bank?" Derek asked. His tone was different from the one he had used with the businesswoman. It was slower, as if he thought Maya might not understand. Maya felt confused. "Yes, I'm sure. I need to deposit money into my account." "Your account?" Derek repeated. He sounded doubtful. "Do you have an account here?" "Yes, I opened it 3 months ago," Maya explained. She tried to keep her voice steady. "My account number is on the deposit slip." Derek picked up the slip and looked at it. He typed something into his computer. The account came up on his screen. It was a real account opened in Maya's name. But Derek still looked suspicious. "Okay," he said slowly. "And what are you depositing today?" Maya pointed to the envelope. "Cash, it's all there." Derek picked up the envelope. It felt heavy in his hands. He opened it carefully and looked inside. His eyes went wide. The envelope was full of $100 bills, neatly stacked and organized. He pulled them out and started counting. 100, 200, 500, 1,000. Derek's hands moved faster. 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. His fingers trembled slightly as he kept counting. 12,000, 14,000, $15,000. He counted it again to make sure. $15,000 in cash. From a teenage girl in a hoodie? Derek's mind raced. Where would a kid get this much money? It didn't make sense. Something was wrong. It had to be. Maybe she stole it. Maybe it belonged to her parents and she took it without asking. Maybe she was involved in something illegal. He looked at Maya with narrow eyes. "Where did you get this money?" His voice was sharp and accusatory. Maya stood up straighter. "I earned it." "It's my money. Your money." Derek said the words like he didn't believe them. "A 16-year-old with $15,000 in cash? You expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth," Maya said. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt her heart beating faster. "I earned every dollar." Derek shook his head. "I need to know where this money really came from." "Whose money is this? Did you take it from your parents? Did someone give it to you?" Maya felt her face grow hot. Other people in the bank were starting to notice. A man in line behind her leaned to the side to see what was happening. A teller 2 windows down glanced over with curious eyes. "I told you," Maya said, trying to stay calm. "It's my money. I earned it legally." "Legally?" Derek's voice grew louder. More heads turned in their direction. I find that very hard to believe. You need to tell me the truth right now. Maya's hands gripped the edge of the counter. She had expected this deposit to be simple and quick. She never imagined she would be questioned like this, treated like a criminal. The way Derek looked at her, the way he spoke to her, it all felt wrong. I am telling the truth, she said quietly but firmly. Derek set the money down on the counter with a slap. Look, I've been doing this job for 10 years. I know when something doesn't add up. Young kids don't walk in here with $15,000 in cash. It just doesn't happen. It does happen, Maya said. I'm right here and this is my money. Did you find this money somewhere? Derek asked. His tone suggested he thought he was being clever, like he was solving a mystery. Maybe you borrowed it? Or maybe you took it from someone. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not cry in front of this man. She would not give him that satisfaction. I would like to speak to your manager, Maya said clearly. Derek actually smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. The manager is going to ask you the same questions I'm asking. She's going to want to know where you got this money too. Then call her, Maya said. Derek picked up the phone on his desk, still looking at Maya with suspicion in his eyes. I'm calling security too. We need to get to the bottom of this. At the window 2 stations down, a young teller named Sarah Chen was helping an elderly customer. But she kept glancing over at Derek and Maya. She could hear Derek's raised voice. She could see the way he was treating the young girl. Sarah felt uncomfortable. This didn't seem right. Maya stood perfectly still at the counter. Her envelope of money sat there, still not deposited. Derek held the phone to his ear, waiting for someone to answer. Around them, the bank had grown quieter. People were watching. Some looked concerned. Others just looked curious about the drama. Maya's backpack felt heavy on her shoulder. Inside it was her laptop, her camera, and the equipment she used for her work. She also had her phone in her pocket, along with documents that proved everything she had said was true. But Derek hadn't asked to see any proof. He had just assumed the worst about her from the moment she walked up to his window. The phone clicked as someone answered on the other end. Yes, this is Derek at window 3, he said into the phone. I need the manager at my station. We have a situation here. He paused, listening. Yes, it's urgent. He hung up the phone and looked at Maya again. The manager will be here in a minute. You can explain everything to her. Maya nodded. She would explain everything. She would show them proof. She would make them understand that she had done nothing wrong. But deep down she knew why Derek was treating her this way. She knew what he had assumed about her the moment he saw her, and that knowledge hurt more than his accusations ever could. Derek set the phone down and crossed his arms. He stared at Maya like she was a criminal standing before him. The $15,000 still sat on the counter between them, sorted into neat piles. The money looked real. Every bill appeared genuine, but Derek couldn't let go of his suspicions. While we wait for the manager, Derek said loudly, Maybe you want to tell me the real story? Maya took a deep breath. She needed to stay calm. Getting angry or upset would only make things worse. I already told you the real story. I earned this money through my work. Your work? Derek said with a laugh that wasn't friendly. What kind of work does a teenager do that pays $15,000 in cash? Online work, Maya answered simply. Online work, Derek repeated, making the words sound suspicious. Right, and I'm supposed to just believe that? A woman standing in line spoke up. Excuse me, is there a problem? I've been waiting for 20 minutes. Derek held up one hand. This will just take a few more minutes, ma'am. We have a situation that needs to be addressed. He turned back to Maya. See, here's what I think happened. I think maybe you found this money. Or maybe someone gave it to you to hold. Or maybe, he leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. Maybe you took it from somewhere you shouldn't have. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides. I didn't steal anything. Why would you even say that? Because $15,000 is a lot of money, Derek said, speaking slowly and carefully as if Maya might not understand big numbers. Normal people don't just walk around with that much cash, especially not kids. I'm not a kid, Maya said. I'm 16 and I run my own business. Derek rolled his eyes. A business, sure, what kind of business? I create educational content online. I have a YouTube channel where I make videos about studying, books, and test preparation. YouTube? Derek laughed again. You're telling me YouTube paid you $15,000? Not just YouTube, Maya explained, trying to keep her voice level. I have sponsorships and partnerships with educational companies. I get paid for advertising and for creating special content. Derek shook his head. That's a nice story, but I don't buy it. I think you're making this up. I think you're in trouble and you're trying to cover it up. Sarah Chen, the young teller nearby, felt her stomach twist. She recognized Maya now. She had seen her videos before, used them to study for her own college exams 2 years ago. This girl was telling the truth. Sarah wanted to speak up, but she was afraid. Derek was senior to her. He had been at the bank for years. What if she said something and got in trouble herself? I have proof, Maya said firmly. I have my phone right here. I can show you my channel. I can show you contracts and emails from the companies I work with. Proof can be faked, Derek said dismissively. Anyone can make up documents on a computer. Then what do you want from me? Maya asked. Her voice cracked slightly. She was trying so hard to stay strong, but this was becoming too much. I want the truth, Derek said. The real truth. Not some made-up story about YouTube videos and online business. Where did you really get this money? The elderly man who had been at the next teller window had finished his transaction. As he walked past Maya, he paused. Young lady, are you all right? He asked kindly. She's fine, Derek said quickly. This is bank business, sir. The old man frowned. It doesn't look like she's fine. It looks like she's being harassed. I'm doing my job, Derek snapped. We have procedures for large cash deposits, especially suspicious ones. What's suspicious about it? The old man asked. She's trying to deposit money into her own account, isn't she? Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move along, Derek said, his voice cold. This doesn't concern you. The old man looked at Maya one more time, concern in his eyes, then slowly walked away. But he didn't leave the bank. He stood near the door, watching. Maya felt a tear slide down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, angry at herself for crying. She didn't want to cry in front of Derek. She didn't want to show any weakness. Are you crying? Derek asked, and there was something mean in his voice. If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you crying? Because you're treating me like a criminal when I haven't done anything wrong, Maya said, her voice shaking. Because you won't listen to me. Because you decided I was lying before I even opened my mouth. I'm just being careful, Derek said. The bank has rules. We have to report suspicious activity. A teenager depositing $15,000 in cash is suspicious. Why? Maya challenged him. Why is it suspicious? Because of my age? Or because of something else? Derek's face turned slightly red. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, Maya said quietly. More people in the bank were watching now. The normal sounds of business had grown quieter. Even the other tellers were paying attention. Sarah Chen's hands gripped the edge of her counter. She wanted to say something. She needed to say something, but fear kept her silent. I'm going to call the police, Derek announced suddenly, reaching for the phone again. Let them sort this out. No, said a firm voice from behind them. Everyone turned. A woman in a gray business suit was walking toward them. She was in her late 40s with short dark hair and glasses. Her face was serious but controlled. This was Patricia Reynolds, the branch manager. Derek, what's going on here? Patricia asked as she approached the window. Derek straightened up, clearly relieved. Ms. Reynolds, thank you for coming. This young woman is trying to deposit $15,000 in cash. She claims she earned it, but her story doesn't make sense. I believe this situation requires investigation. Patricia looked at the money on the counter, then at Maya's tear-stained face, then back at Derek. Has she shown you any identification? Derek paused. Well, no, but have you checked her account history? I looked up her account, yes, but has she been cooperative? She's been argumentative, Derek said defensively. I haven't been argumentative, Maya said, finding her voice again. I've been answering his questions. But he won't believe anything I say. He's accused me of stealing, of lying, of being involved in illegal activity, and he never even asked to see proof of anything. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. She had been a bank manager for 15 years. She had seen many situations. She knew how to read people, both customers and employees. Something about this situation bothered her. Derek, why don't you tell me exactly what happened from the beginning? Patricia said calmly. Derek launched into his explanation. He described how Maya came to his window with an envelope of cash. He talked about the large amount and how suspicious it seemed. He emphasized that young people don't normally have that kind of money. He mentioned his concerns about illegal activity and his duty to protect the bank. As Derek spoke, Patricia watched Maya's face. The girl looked hurt and tired but not guilty. She didn't look like someone who had stolen money or done something wrong. She looked like someone who was being treated unfairly and didn't understand why. "And you," Patricia said, turning to Maya when Derek finished. "What's your name?" "Maya Johnson," she answered. "Maya, why don't you tell me your side of the story?" Maya took a deep breath. This was her chance to explain everything properly, to someone who might actually listen. "I'm 16 years old and I run a YouTube channel. It's called Maya's Mind. I make educational videos about studying, reading, and test preparation. I started it about 8 months ago just as a hobby, but then my SAT prep videos went viral. Now I have 500,000 subscribers." Derek made a sound like he didn't believe her, but Patricia held up a hand to silence him. Maya continued, "I make money from advertising on my videos. I also have partnerships with educational companies who sponsor my content. They pay me to feature their study materials or books. Last month I signed a bigger contract with a test prep company to create a special video series. They paid me a signing bonus of $10,000. Plus I had my regular income from the past few months. That's where this $15,000 came from. Do you have any proof of this?" Patricia asked. Her tone was respectful, not accusatory. "Yes," Maya said, reaching for her backpack. "I have my phone with all my videos. I have emails from the companies. I have my contract. I even have my tax documents from when my mom helped me register as a small business." Derek started to interrupt. "Anyone can fake Derek," Patricia said sharply. "Let her show us." Maya pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She opened the YouTube app and navigated to her channel. She turned the phone so Patricia could see the screen. Patricia looked at the phone. There was Maya's face on the screen, smiling from a video thumbnail. The channel name read Maya's Mind. Below that were numbers. 500,000 subscribers, millions of views across hundreds of videos. Patricia scrolled through the channel. Video after video of this same girl, sitting at a desk, explaining algebra, reviewing books, giving study tips. The comments were full of praise from students thanking her for helping them pass tests and get into college. Sarah Chen couldn't stay quiet anymore. Her heart was pounding, but she had to speak. "Ms. Reynolds," she called out from her window. "I recognize her. I've watched her videos. She helped me study for my college entrance exams 2 years ago. She's telling the truth." Derek's face went pale. He looked at Sarah, then at Patricia, then at Maya. For the first time, doubt crept into his expression. Patricia turned to Maya with a softer expression. "Miss Johnson, I apologize for this situation. Would you please come to my office? I'd like to handle your deposit personally and discuss what happened here today." Maya nodded, grateful for the respectful tone. She gathered her papers and put them back in her backpack. Her hands were still shaking slightly from the stress of the confrontation. "Derek, stay at your window," Patricia said firmly. "We'll talk after I finish with Miss Johnson." Derek's mouth opened as if he wanted to protest, but he closed it again. He watched as Patricia guided Maya toward the office at the back of the bank. Other customers were still watching the scene. Some looked sympathetic toward Maya. Others whispered to each other about what they had witnessed. The elderly man who had spoken up earlier gave Maya a small nod of encouragement as she passed. Sarah Chen smiled at her from behind the counter, relief visible on her face. Maya managed a weak smile back. Patricia's office was quiet and professional. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with banking regulations and business books. A large desk sat in the center with 2 comfortable chairs for visitors. Patricia closed the door and gestured for Maya to sit down. "Please make yourself comfortable," Patricia said. She walked around to her side of the desk and sat down. "First, I want to apologize again for how you were treated out there. That should never have happened." Maya sat down, still clutching her backpack. "Thank you," she said quietly. Patricia opened a folder and took out a pen. "Now I need to understand exactly what occurred. Can you walk me through everything from the moment you approached Derek's window?" Maya told the whole story. She described how she had waited in line, how she had politely requested to make a deposit. She explained how Derek immediately seemed suspicious of her, how he questioned where she got the money, how his voice grew louder and more accusatory. She talked about how he suggested she had stolen the money or was involved in something illegal. Patricia listened carefully, taking notes. Her expression grew more serious with each detail. "He made me feel like a criminal," Maya said, her voice breaking slightly. "I came here to deposit money I earned honestly. I was proud of what I accomplished, and he treated me like I had done something terrible." "Did Derek ask to see any identification?" Patricia asked. "No. He never asked for my ID. He never asked to see proof of my work. He just assumed the worst about me." "And before you came to his window, did you see how he treated other customers?" Maya thought back. "There was a woman in a business suit before me. He was polite to her, professional. He used a completely different tone with her than he used with me." Patricia wrote this down. "Miss Johnson, I need to ask you a direct question, and I want you to know you can be honest with me. Do you believe Derek treated you differently because of your race and age?" Maya had been thinking about this question since the moment Derek first spoke to her. She knew the answer, but saying it out loud made it real and painful. "Yes," she said finally. "I think he saw a young black girl in a hoodie and assumed I couldn't possibly have earned that money honestly. The woman before me was white and dressed in business clothes. He didn't question her. He didn't raise his voice at her. He didn't accuse her of anything." Patricia nodded slowly. "Thank you for being honest. What you've described is discrimination, and it's completely unacceptable. This bank has policies against such behavior, and Derek violated those policies today." She opened her drawer and pulled out some official-looking papers. "Now let's handle your deposit properly. May I see your identification and the money?" Maya handed over her driver's license and the envelope of cash. Patricia checked the ID carefully, then counted the money. Unlike Derek, she did so professionally and without judgment. When she finished counting, she entered the information into her computer. $15,000, Patricia confirmed. "This will be deposited into your account ending in 4721. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." Patricia processed the transaction smoothly. "There, it's done. You should see the deposit in your account within a few minutes." She printed out a receipt and handed it to Maya. Maya looked at the receipt, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. This was how it should have been from the start. Simple, professional, respectful. Why had Derek made it so difficult? Patricia folded her hands on the desk. "Maya, may I ask you some questions about your business?" "I'm genuinely curious, not suspicious. I want to understand what you've built." Maya relaxed slightly. This felt different from Derek's interrogation. "Sure, what would you like to know?" "You said you have 500,000 subscribers." "That's impressive. How did you grow your channel so quickly?" Maya's face brightened a bit as she talked about her work. "I started by making videos about the books I was reading for school. Then I realized a lot of students struggled with the same things I did, so I started making study guides and test prep videos. When I posted my free SAT prep series, it got shared on Reddit and Twitter. That's when everything changed." "And companies pay you to work with them?" Patricia asked. "Yes. Educational companies want to reach students, and my channel has the exact audience they want. They pay me to review their products or feature them in my videos. But I only work with companies whose products I actually believe in. I wouldn't recommend something to my viewers just for money." Patricia smiled. "That's very ethical of you. And the $15,000 you deposited today? Most of it is from a contract I signed last month with PrepSmart Academy. They're a test preparation company. They wanted me to create a special video series explaining different study techniques. They paid me a $10,000 signing bonus. The rest is from my regular advertising income over the past few months." "Do your parents help you manage all this?" Patricia asked. "My mom helped me set up the business properly and file my taxes. She wants to make sure I'm doing everything legally. But the work itself, the videos, the negotiations with companies, that's all me." Patricia was impressed. This young woman was mature, professional, and had built a real business. Derek's treatment of her was even more inexcusable knowing all this. "Maya, I need to be transparent with you about something," Patricia said seriously. "I'm going to take action regarding Derek's behavior today. But to do that properly, I need evidence. You mentioned earlier that you have equipment in your backpack. Do you by any chance have any recording of what happened?" Maya hesitated. She hadn't mentioned the recording yet. "I do," she admitted. "I have a small camera I use for my videos. I keep it in my backpack, and it was recording when I came into the bank. I turn it on sometimes when I'm out, just to capture random footage I might use later. I didn't plan to record what happened with Derek, it just happened to be on. Would you be willing to share that recording with me?" Patricia asked. It would help me take appropriate action. Maya thought about it. Part of her wanted to just forget this whole experience and move on. But another part of her knew that if she didn't speak up, Derek might treat someone else the same way. Maybe someone who didn't have proof like she did. Maybe someone who wouldn't stand up for themselves. Okay, Maya said. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small camera. The whole thing is on here. Patricia set up her computer to accept the video file. Maya connected the camera and transferred the recording. Then Patricia played it back. The video was clear and the audio was surprisingly good. It showed Maya's approach to Derek's window from her perspective. It captured Derek's dismissive tone from the very beginning, his increasingly accusatory questions, his raised voice, his implications that she had stolen the money. It showed Maya staying calm and respectful even as Derek became more hostile. It captured everything. Patricia's jaw tightened as she watched. She had heard Maya's description, but seeing it was different. The discrimination was obvious. The way Derek spoke to Maya compared to how she had heard him speak to other customers was like night and day. His body language, his tone, his words, everything showed bias and prejudice. When the video ended, Patricia sat back in her chair. She looked angry, but it was a controlled anger. The anger of a professional who had just witnessed a serious violation of ethics and policy. Maya, this video clearly shows inappropriate conduct, Patricia said. Derek's behavior was discriminatory and violated our bank's policies and values. I want you to know that I take this very seriously. What will happen to him? Maya asked. I need to follow proper procedures, Patricia explained. I'll need to review this with our Human Resources Department and document everything. But I can tell you that this kind of behavior has consequences. Derek will face disciplinary action. Maya nodded. She didn't feel happy about getting Derek in trouble, but she also knew what he did was wrong. Patricia looked at Maya with respect. You handled yourself remarkably well out there. Many adults would have gotten angry or walked out. You stayed calm. You asked for a manager and you had documentation to back up your claims. That takes maturity and strength. I wanted to get angry, Maya admitted. I wanted to yell at him. But I knew that would only make things worse. People already make assumptions about young black kids. I didn't want to give him any excuse to say I was being aggressive or difficult. Patricia's expression turned sad. You're 16 years old. You shouldn't have to think about those things. You should be able to walk into a bank and be treated with basic respect and decency. But that's not the world we live in, Maya said quietly. My parents taught me how to handle situations like this. They told me to always stay calm, always be polite, always have documentation. They prepared me for this even though they hoped I'd never experience it. The two sat in silence for a moment. Patricia was thinking about the larger implications of what had happened. This wasn't just about one employee and one customer. It was about systemic issues that allowed people like Derek to act on their biases. Maya, I want to ask you something, Patricia said. Would you be willing to help us? Not right now, but in the future. We clearly need better training for our employees. Real training that addresses implicit bias and discrimination. Having someone like you, someone who has experienced this, speak to our staff could make a real difference. Maya considered this. Maybe I'd have to think about it. It's hard to talk about this stuff. I understand, Patricia said. You don't have to decide now, but the offer stands whenever you're ready. Patricia stood up. Let me walk you back out. And Maya, I want you to know that you're welcome at this bank. What happened today does not represent who we are or what we stand for. I hope you'll give us another chance. Maya stood too, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. I'll think about it, she said honestly. As they left the office, Maya saw that Derek was still at his window helping a customer. But he looked stiff and uncomfortable. He glanced over as Maya and Patricia emerged and his face went red. Sarah Chen caught Maya's eye and smiled. A few other employees nodded respectfully at her as she passed. The elderly man was still near the door, and as Maya walked by, he spoke. Good for you, young lady, he said warmly. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Maya smiled at him. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you speaking up earlier. Patricia walked Maya all the way to the door. Thank you for your patience today, Maya. Someone will be in touch about Derek's situation. And if you ever need anything from this bank, please ask for me directly. Maya shook her hand. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. As Maya pushed through the glass doors and walked outside, she felt exhausted. The bright sunshine seemed too cheerful for how she felt inside. She had won in a sense. Her money was deposited. Derek would face consequences. But she didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired and hurt. She pulled out her phone and texted her mom. "It's done. The money is deposited." But it didn't go well. "I'll tell you when I get home." Her mom's response came quickly. "Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you?" Maya looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. "I'm okay. I'll be home soon." She started walking toward the bus stop. Behind her, inside the bank, Patricia Reynolds was making a phone call to Human Resources. The consequences for Derek Matthews were about to begin. Patricia Reynolds stood by her office door and watched Maya walk out of the bank. Once the girl disappeared through the glass doors, Patricia's professional composure hardened into something more severe. She walked back to the teller counter where Derek was still working, trying to act normal. "Derek," Patricia said quietly but firmly, "close your window and come to my office now." Derek's hands froze over his keyboard. He looked up at Patricia and the color drained from his face. "But I still have customers waiting." "Sarah will take them," Patricia said. She looked at Sarah Chen. "Can you handle Derek's line?" "Yes, ma'am," Sarah said quickly, moving to take over Derek's station. Derek stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. He followed Patricia through the bank, aware that every employee and several customers were watching him. The walk to Patricia's office felt like the longest walk of his life. Patricia held the door open for him, then closed it firmly behind them. She didn't sit down. Instead, she stood facing Derek with her arms crossed. "What were you thinking out there?" she asked. Her voice was controlled, but Derek could hear the anger underneath. "I was following protocol," Derek said, but his voice lacked confidence. "Large cash deposits require scrutiny." "Scrutiny, yes," Patricia agreed. "But what you did wasn't scrutiny. It was harassment and discrimination. Do you understand the difference?" Derek shifted his weight from one foot to another. "I don't think it was discrimination. I treat all customers the same." Patricia walked to her desk and turned her computer screen toward Derek. "I'm going to show you something. Miss Johnson recorded your entire interaction with her. Watch this." She pressed play on the video. Derek watched himself on the screen. He saw how he had spoken to Maya, heard the accusatory tone in his voice. He watched himself grow louder and more hostile. As the video played, Derek's face turned red, then pale, then red again. When it ended, Patricia crossed her arms again. "Now tell me you treat all customers the same." Derek couldn't speak for a moment. Watching himself from the outside was different from remembering how he felt in the moment. He looked worse than he thought. "Much worse. I was concerned about the bank," Derek said weakly. "Were you?" Patricia challenged. "Tell me, Derek, when Mrs. Henderson deposited $12,000 in cash last week, did you question her like that?" Derek remembered Mrs. Henderson. She was a white woman in her 50s who had sold some jewelry. That was different. She had a receipt for the jewelry sale. "Did you ask to see the receipt before you questioned her?" "Well, no, but she volunteered it." "And did you give Miss Johnson a chance to volunteer her documentation before you accused her of theft?" Derek was silent. Patricia sat down at her desk and pulled up a file on her computer. "I've been reviewing your history, Derek. This isn't the first complaint we've received about your behavior toward young customers and customers of color." Derek's eyes went wide. "What complaints?" "No one ever told me about complaints." "2 incidents were documented in the past 18 months, Patricia said, reading from her screen. "Both times you were counseled about your approach to customers. Both times you were told to examine your biases and treat all customers with equal respect." "I don't remember that," Derek protested. "It's in your file," Patricia said flatly. She turned the screen so he could see the documentation. There it was in black and white. Written warnings from his supervisor about his attitude toward certain customers. Derek felt sick. He had dismissed those conversations as his supervisor being too sensitive. He had convinced himself that he wasn't biased, that he was just being careful. But now, watching that video of himself, he couldn't deny it anymore. "I didn't mean to discriminate," Derek said, his voice cracking. "I honestly thought something was wrong. A teenager with $15,000 in cash, it just seemed suspicious." "Why?" Patricia asked. "Because teenagers can't be successful? Because young people can't run businesses? Or was it because she was a black girl in casual clothes and you made assumptions based on that?" "I don't know," Derek admitted. He felt confused and defensive and ashamed all at once. "Maybe, I don't know. It just felt wrong. It felt wrong because of your own biases, Patricia said. Derek, let me ask you something. Did you ask to see her identification? No. Did you ask to see any documentation about the source of her funds? No. Did you check her account history to see if there were any red flags? I looked up her account, but I didn't really check the history. So you didn't follow actual protocol for suspicious activity, Patricia concluded. You just made assumptions and accusations based on how she looked. Do you understand how serious this is? Derek sat down without asking permission. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. What's going to happen? Patricia picked up her phone. I need to call our human resources director. This requires an official investigation. Derek, you're suspended effective immediately, pending the outcome of that investigation. Suspended? Derek's voice came out as a whisper. Patricia, please. I've worked here for 10 years. And in those 10 years, you've been warned about this behavior before, Patricia said. You didn't change. You didn't learn. And today you humiliated a young woman who had done absolutely nothing wrong. You accused her of crimes based on nothing but your prejudice. I have a mortgage, Derek said desperately. I have bills. I can't afford to be suspended without pay. You should have thought about that before you treated a customer like a criminal, Patricia said without sympathy. She dialed a number on her phone. Derek sat in the chair, feeling his world collapse around him. He had never imagined this morning that he would end the day suspended from his job. He thought about his wife, about how he would explain this to her. He thought about his co-workers, about how they would look at him now. Patricia spoke into the phone. James, it's Patricia Reynolds at the downtown branch. I need you to join a video call immediately. We have a serious incident that requires HR intervention. She paused, listening. Yes, it involves an employee. Derek Matthews. Another pause. Discrimination and harassment of a customer. I have video evidence. She hung up and set up her computer for a video call. Within 2 minutes, a man's face appeared on the screen. James Kim was the HR director for the entire bank chain. He looked serious and professional. Good afternoon, Patricia, James said. Tell me what happened. Patricia explained the entire situation. She described Maya's attempt to make a deposit, Derek's hostile treatment of her, and the video evidence. She also mentioned the previous complaints against Derek that had been documented, but not seriously addressed. James listened with a grave expression. Can I see the video? Patricia played it for him. James watched without interrupting, his face growing more concerned with each minute. When it ended, James spoke directly to Derek, who was visible at the edge of the camera. Mr. Matthews, do you have anything to say about what we just saw? Derek looked at the camera. I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting the bank. I didn't mean to discriminate. But you did discriminate, James said firmly. Your intent doesn't change the impact of your actions. You treated a customer differently based on her age and race. You made accusations without evidence. You raised your voice at her in a public space, causing a scene and humiliating her. I know, Derek said miserably. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, James said. This bank has clear policies against discrimination. We've invested in training programs. You've been through those programs multiple times, haven't you? Yes, and yet here we are, James said. Mr. Matthews, based on what I've seen and heard, I'm recommending immediate suspension pending a full investigation. Patricia, please escort Mr. Matthews from the building. He should collect his personal items and leave. Derek felt like he might be sick. James, please, can't we work this out? I'll apologize to the girl. I'll take more training. I'll do whatever it takes. This isn't about what you'll do now, James said. This is about what you did then, and about the pattern of behavior documented in your file. The investigation will determine what happens next, but for now you're suspended without pay. Patricia stood up. Derek, I need you to collect your things from your station. I'll walk you out. Derek stood on shaky legs. This couldn't be happening. This morning he had woken up like any other day, had his coffee, drove to work. Now he was being escorted out like a criminal. They walked back into the main bank area. The other employees tried not to stare, but Derek could feel their eyes on him. Sarah Chen looked away quickly when he glanced in her direction. He opened his drawer at the teller station and pulled out his coffee mug, some pens, a photo of his wife. Such small things to represent 10 years of work. Patricia waited patiently. Do you have everything? Yes, Derek said quietly. She walked him to the door. As they passed customers, Derek kept his eyes down. He felt ashamed and angry and scared all at once. At the door, Patricia spoke in a low voice that only Derek could hear. Derek, I want you to understand something. This isn't about ruining your life. This is about consequences for your actions. You hurt someone today, a young woman who worked hard and accomplished something impressive, and you made her feel like a criminal. You need to really think about why you did that. Derek nodded, unable to speak. You'll receive a call from HR within 24 hours about next steps. Until then, you're not to contact anyone from the bank or attempt to come to any branch location. Do you understand? Yes. Derek walked out of First National Bank possibly for the last time as an employee. The sunshine felt harsh and exposing. He got in his car and sat there for a long moment before starting the engine. His phone was already ringing. It was his wife, probably wondering why he was calling her in the middle of the workday. He didn't answer. He didn't know what to say yet. Back inside the bank, Patricia returned to her office and made another call, this time to the bank's legal department. They needed to be informed of potential liability. Maya would have been within her rights to file a lawsuit. The video evidence was damning. Sarah Chen appeared at Patricia's door, knocking softly. Ms. Reynolds? Can I talk to you? Of course, Sarah, come in. Sarah sat down, looking nervous. I wanted to tell you something about Derek, about other times I've seen him treat customers badly. Patricia pulled out a notepad. I'm listening. There was a young Hispanic man a few months ago, Sarah began. He wanted to open a business account for his landscaping company. Derek kept asking him about his immigration status and if his business was legal. The man had all his paperwork in order, but Derek made him feel so uncomfortable that he almost left without opening the account. Patricia wrote this down. Why didn't you report this before? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I was scared. Derek has been here so long. He knows the managers. I thought maybe I was being too sensitive, that maybe I was misunderstanding. And I was afraid he'd make my life difficult if I said something. You weren't being too sensitive, Patricia assured her, and you should never be afraid to report discrimination. We have protections for employees who speak up about these issues. I know that now, Sarah said. Watching what he did to that girl today made me realize I should have said something before. Maybe if I had, she wouldn't have gone through that. Sarah, listen to me, Patricia said gently. What happened today is not your fault. It's Derek's fault. But I'm glad you're speaking up now. What you're telling me will be part of the investigation. Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. That girl Maya, she was so brave. She stayed calm even when Derek was being terrible to her. I don't know if I could have done that. She was remarkable, Patricia agreed. And hopefully some good can come from this situation. We can improve our training, our policies, our whole approach to preventing discrimination. After Sarah left, Patricia sat alone in her office for a few minutes. She thought about Maya, about Derek, about the bank's responsibility to both customers and employees. This situation had revealed serious problems that needed to be addressed. But at least now they were being addressed. That was something. Maya sat at the kitchen table in her home, her laptop open in front of her. Her mother, Jennifer Johnson, sat across from her with a cup of tea, listening intently as Maya told her everything that had happened at the bank. He said what? Jennifer's voice was tight with controlled anger. He basically accused me of stealing the money, Maya said. He asked if I took it from someone or found it somewhere. He wouldn't even consider that I might have earned it. Jennifer closed her eyes and took a deep breath. As a black woman who had experienced her own share of discrimination, she knew exactly what her daughter had gone through. But knowing it happened to her child made it hurt even more. I'm so proud of how you handled it, Jennifer said, reaching across the table to hold Maya's hand. You stayed calm. You asked for the manager. You had your documentation ready. You did everything right. But I shouldn't have had to do everything right, Maya said, her voice breaking. I should have just been able to deposit my money like anyone else. Why did I have to prove myself? Why did he assume the worst about me? Jennifer squeezed her daughter's hand. Because we live in a world where some people make judgments based on how others look. It's not fair. It's not right. But it's reality. I was so scared, Maya admitted. When he threatened to call the police, I was terrified. I kept thinking about all the stories we've heard, about young black people in situations that escalated for no good reason. But it didn't escalate, Jennifer reminded her. You stayed in control. The manager listened to you. Justice was served. Was it though? Maya asked. The guy got suspended. But he'll probably just get his job back eventually. And even if he doesn't, he'll just go work somewhere else and treat other people the same way. Jennifer sighed. Maybe. Or maybe this will be a wake-up call for him. Maybe he'll finally examine his own biases and change. We can't control what he does. We can only control how we respond. Maya's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up and saw notifications flooding in. Her YouTube channel was blowing up. Somehow, word had gotten out about what happened at the bank. Someone who had been there must have posted about it on social media. "Mom, look at this," Maya said, turning her phone so Jennifer could see. Hundreds of comments were pouring into her latest video. Messages of support, people sharing their own stories of discrimination, others expressing outrage at what had happened to her. Over the next few days, the story spread further. Local news outlets picked it up. A reporter called Maya's house asking for an interview. Maya declined at first, not sure if she wanted to relive the experience publicly. But Jennifer encouraged her to think about it. "You have a platform," Jennifer said. "You have hundreds of thousands of people who listen to you. If you speak up about this, you might help others who've gone through the same thing. You might even help prevent it from happening to someone else." Maya thought about it carefully. Finally, she agreed to do one interview with a local news station. She sat in her room, the same room where she filmed all her educational videos and told her story to a reporter via video call. The interview aired that evening. Maya explained what happened calmly and clearly. She didn't attack Derek personally. Instead, she talked about the broader issue of discrimination and bias. She discussed how young people and people of color often face additional scrutiny and suspicion, even when they've done nothing wrong. The interview went viral. News outlets across the country picked it up. Maya's YouTube channel gained 200,000 new subscribers in 3 days. But more importantly, people started talking about the issue. Teachers discussed it in classrooms. Parents talked to their children about discrimination. Other young entrepreneurs shared their own experiences. At First National Bank, Patricia Reynolds was dealing with the fallout. The bank's corporate office had gotten involved. They wanted to know how this situation had been allowed to happen. Why hadn't Derek's previous complaints been taken more seriously? What training failures had occurred? Patricia sat in a conference call with executives from the corporate office. "We clearly have gaps in our training and accountability systems," she admitted. "Derek Matthews went through all our standard discrimination prevention training, yet he still acted on his biases. Something in our approach isn't working. What do you recommend?" asked the CEO, Mr. Thompson. "I think we need to do more than just standard training videos and modules," Patricia said. "We need real conversations about implicit bias. We need to bring in people who have experienced discrimination to speak to our staff. We need to make this personal and real, not just abstract policy." "The Johnson girl," Mr. Thompson said. "The one Matthews discriminated against. Have you stayed in contact with her?" "I've reached out a few times to check on her," Patricia said. "She's handling the situation with remarkable maturity." "Do you think she would be willing to help us? To speak to our staff about her experience?" Patricia paused. "I don't know. That's a lot to ask of a 16-year-old who was traumatized by our employee, but I can ask her." That evening, Patricia called Maya. She explained the bank's desire to improve their training and asked if Maya would consider participating. Maya listened carefully. "What would I have to do?" "Just tell your story," Patricia said. "Help our employees understand what it feels like to be on the receiving end of discrimination. Help them see how their assumptions and biases can hurt people." "I'll think about it," Maya said. "Can I call you back in a few days?" "Of course. Take all the time you need." Maya discussed it with her mother and her father, Marcus Johnson. Her parents had different opinions. Jennifer thought it could be healing for Maya to turn her pain into something constructive. Marcus was more protective, worried about asking too much of his daughter. "You don't owe them anything," Marcus said firmly. "They hurt you. Their employee discriminated against you. They should fix their own problems without putting that burden on you." "But what if I can help prevent this from happening to someone else?" Maya asked. "What if my story makes even one employee think twice before making assumptions about a customer?" Maya made her decision. She called Patricia back and agreed to help, but with conditions. She would speak to bank employees, but she wanted to be compensated for her time and expertise. She also wanted the bank to make a donation to a non-profit organization that helped young entrepreneurs from underrepresented communities. Patricia agreed immediately. The bank drew up a formal contract. Maya would participate in 3 training sessions at different branch locations. She would share her story and answer questions from employees. In exchange, she would be paid as a professional consultant, and the bank would donate $10,000 to her chosen nonprofit. The first training session was the hardest. Maya stood in front of 40 bank employees, including tellers, managers, and loan officers. She felt nervous and exposed. These weren't strangers on the internet. These were people looking at her in person, people who worked with Derek Matthews, people who might have their own biases. But Maya took a deep breath and began. She told her story from the beginning. She described walking into the bank excited to deposit money she had earned. She explained how Derek's attitude changed the moment he saw her. She talked about the accusations, the raised voice, the public humiliation. As she spoke, Maya watched the faces of the employees. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked sad. A few looked angry, not at Maya, but at the situation. She could see her words landing, making an impact. "I want to be clear about something," Maya said toward the end. "I don't think Derek Matthews is an evil person. I don't think he woke up that morning planning to discriminate against me. But that's what makes this so important to understand. Discrimination doesn't always come from hate. Sometimes it comes from unconscious biases we don't even know we have." She continued. "Derek made assumptions about me based on my age and my race. He saw a young black girl in casual clothes and decided I couldn't possibly have earned that money honestly. He didn't give me a chance to show my documentation. He didn't ask questions professionally. He just assumed the worst." Maya paused, looking around the room. "Every person who walks into this bank deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. It doesn't matter if they're young or old, black or white, rich or poor, dressed in a suit or wearing a hoodie. Everyone deserves the same level of professionalism and courtesy." After she finished, employees asked questions. Some wanted to know how they could recognize their own biases. Others asked for practical advice on how to treat customers fairly. A few apologized for what Maya had experienced, even though they weren't personally responsible. One older woman raised her hand. "I've worked at this bank for 20 years. I want to believe I treat everyone the same, but your story made me realize I might not. How do I check myself?" Maya thought about the question. Ask yourself if you would treat a customer differently if they looked different. If a white businessman came in with $15,000 in cash, would you question him the same way Derek questioned me? If the answer is no, then you need to examine why. The training session ended with the employees giving Maya a standing ovation. Several came up to thank her personally. Sarah Chen, who had witnessed the original incident, approached with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for doing this," Sarah said. "Thank you for being brave enough to come back here and help us learn." Maya smiled at her. "Thank you for speaking up that day. It helped." As Maya left the bank after that first training session, she felt different. She had been carrying anger and hurt since the incident, but turning that pain into education, into an opportunity to create change, that helped her heal. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was an advocate. The next 2 training sessions went similarly well. Word spread through the bank's network about the powerful presentations Maya was giving. Employees who hadn't attended the sessions asked if they could watch a recording. The bank decided to film the 3rd session and make it required viewing for all employees across all branches. Meanwhile, Derek Matthews was dealing with the consequences of his actions. The investigation had concluded. Based on the video evidence, the previous complaints in his file, and witness statements from other employees, Derek's employment was terminated. He would not be coming back to First National Bank. Derek sat in his living room staring at the termination letter. He had tried to find other jobs in banking, but the discrimination on his record followed him. Every background check revealed what had happened. No bank wanted to hire someone with that history. His wife, Angela, sat beside him. She had been angry at first, unable to believe Derek had acted that way, but as the truth became clear, her anger turned to disappointment. "I don't understand," Angela said quietly. "We've talked about racism. We've talked about treating people fairly. How could you do that to that girl?" "I don't know," Derek said honestly. He had spent weeks thinking about it, trying to understand his own actions. "I thought I was just being careful. I thought I was protecting the bank. But watching that video of myself, seeing how I treated her, I realized I had become someone I didn't want to be." "So what are you going to do about it?" Angela asked. Derek looked at his wife. "I don't know yet, but I need to change. I need to really examine my beliefs and biases. I need to be better. It was the first step. Derek had a long way to go, but at least he was finally being honest with himself about his prejudices. Whether he would truly change remained to be seen. Back at Maya's house, she was editing a new video for her channel. But this one wasn't about studying or test preparation. This one was about her experience at the bank. She had decided to share the full story with her subscribers, along with lessons about standing up for yourself and fighting discrimination. As she worked on the video, Maya thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the fear, the anger, but also the growth, the advocacy, the positive change. She had turned one of the worst experiences of her young life into an opportunity to educate and inspire others. Her subscriber count kept climbing, but more important than the numbers were the messages she received from young people who said her story gave them courage. Students who had been dismissed or discriminated against. Young entrepreneurs who had been told they were too young to succeed. People of color who had faced bias and prejudice. Maya realized her platform was about more than just educational content now. It was about empowerment, representation, and justice. She had found her voice and she planned to use it. 6 months had passed since that difficult day at First National Bank. Maya sat in her dorm room at Stanford University, looking out the window at the California campus. The $15,000 she had deposited that day, along with her continued earnings from her YouTube channel, had helped make this dream possible. Her channel had grown to over 700,000 subscribers now. But the content had evolved. Yes, she still made educational videos about studying and test preparation, but she also created content about financial literacy for teens, about entrepreneurship, and about dealing with discrimination and bias. The video where she told the full story of what happened at the bank had been viewed over 5 million times. It had sparked conversations across the country about how young people and people of color are treated in professional settings. Schools used it in diversity training. Parents watched it with their children. It had become more than just Maya's story. It had become a teaching tool. Maya's phone rang. It was Patricia Reynolds from the bank. "Maya, hello," Patricia said warmly. "How's Stanford treating you?" "It's amazing," Maya said with a smile. "The classes are challenging, but I love it here." "I'm glad to hear that. I'm calling because I wanted to give you an update on some changes we've made at the bank. Changes that were directly inspired by you." Maya sat up straighter, interested. "What kind of changes?" "We've completely overhauled our discrimination prevention training," Patricia explained. "Your presentation to our staff had such an impact that we decided to make similar training mandatory for all employees at all locations. We've also created a youth advisory board to help us better understand and serve young customers." "That's wonderful," Maya said sincerely. "And there's more," Patricia continued. "We've partnered with several organizations that support young entrepreneurs. We've created a special banking program for young business owners, with resources and financial literacy education. We're calling it the Young Innovators Program." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. Something good had come from her painful experience. Real tangible change that would help other young people avoid what she went through. "The board of directors wanted me to personally thank you," Patricia said. "What happened 6 months ago was a wake-up call for our entire organization. We thought we were doing enough to prevent discrimination, but we weren't. You helped us see that, and you helped us do better." After the call ended, Maya sat quietly for a moment. She thought about Derek Matthews sometimes, wondered what had happened to him. She didn't hate him, though she had every right to. Instead, she felt a kind of sad disappointment that he had let his biases control his actions. She didn't know that Derek had spent the past 6 months in serious self-reflection. Unable to find work in banking, he had taken a job at a community center in a diverse neighborhood. He worked with kids from all backgrounds, helping them with homework and mentoring them. It was humbling work that paid much less than his bank job, but it was teaching him things he needed to learn. Derek had also started attending workshops on implicit bias and racial justice. He read books about systemic racism and discrimination. He listened to podcasts featuring people of color sharing their experiences. He was trying to educate himself, to understand the harm his assumptions and biases had caused. One evening, Derek sat with a group of teenagers at the community center. They were working on college applications. A young black girl asked him to read her essay about overcoming obstacles. As Derek read her essay about facing discrimination and low expectations because of her race, he felt ashamed. This could have been Maya's essay. This could be any young person who had been judged unfairly because of how they looked. This is powerful, Derek told the girl honestly. You've turned your pain into strength. That takes courage, the girl smiled at him. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. I'm hoping it helps me get into a good school. I want to study business and start my own company someday. You'll do great things, Derek said, and he meant it. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself. It was a small moment, but it represented Derek's growth. He was learning to see people as individuals, not as stereotypes. He was learning to check his assumptions and biases. He had a long way to go, but he was trying. Back at Stanford, Maya was preparing for a speaking engagement. She had been invited to give a TEDx talk about her experience and about youth entrepreneurship. As she practiced her speech in her dorm room, her roommate Sophie listened. You're going to crush it, Sophie said encouragingly. Your story is so powerful. Maya smiled at her friend. I hope it helps people. That's the whole point. The TEDx talk took place on a Saturday afternoon. Maya stood on the red circle on the stage looking out at hundreds of faces. She wore professional clothes now instead of her hoodie and jeans, but she was still the same person who had walked into that bank 6 months ago. She began her talk by describing that day in detail. She painted the picture of a young entrepreneur excited to deposit her hard-earned money. Then she described the shock and hurt of being treated like a criminal. In that moment, Maya said to the audience, I had a choice. I could have walked away. I could have accepted that treatment as just the way things are. But instead I chose to stand up for myself. I chose to document what happened. I chose to speak out about it. She talked about the importance of young people finding their voice and using their platforms for good. She discussed the need for businesses to examine their practices and address discrimination seriously. She emphasized that change only happens when people are willing to have uncomfortable conversations. Discrimination doesn't go away by ignoring it, Maya said. It goes away when we shine a light on it, when we call it out, when we refuse to accept it as normal, and when institutions take responsibility and commit to real change. The talk ended with a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of people wanted to speak with Maya, to thank her, to share their own stories. A producer from a major network approached her about doing a documentary series on young entrepreneurs facing obstacles. Maya was overwhelmed but grateful. Her life had changed dramatically in 6 months, but she tried to stay grounded. Her parents had raised her to use success to help others, not just to benefit herself. That's why Maya had recently started a nonprofit organization called Young Voices Rising. The organization provided resources, mentorship, and small grants to young entrepreneurs from underrepresented communities. The bank's $10,000 donation had been the seed money, but Maya's growing platform had attracted other donors. Every week, Maya featured a different young entrepreneur on her YouTube channel. She highlighted their businesses, their struggles, and their successes. She wanted her subscribers to see that young people were capable of amazing things when given the opportunity and respect they deserved. One of the entrepreneurs she featured was a 17-year-old named Jamal, who had created an app to help students find affordable textbooks. Another was a 16-year-old named Elena, who had started a successful catering business specializing in her grandmother's recipes. Each story showed that age didn't determine ability or potential. Sarah Chen, the bank teller who had spoken up during Maya's incident, reached out to Maya through social media. They met for coffee when Maya was home visiting her parents. I wanted to thank you, Sarah said as they sat in a small coffee shop. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me courage to speak up about other things I'd seen. I've become an advocate for change at the bank now. That's amazing, Maya said warmly. We need more people willing to speak up. I was promoted to assistant branch manager, Sarah added proudly. Patricia said my integrity and willingness to address problems was exactly what the bank needs in leadership. They talked for over an hour. Two young women from different backgrounds who had been brought together by a shared experience of witnessing injustice. Before they parted, Sarah asked Maya something that had been on her mind. Do you ever regret how everything happened? I mean, I know you've done incredible things because of it, but do you wish it had never happened at all? Maya thought about the question carefully. I wish I hadn't had to go through that pain and humiliation. I wish Derek had treated me with basic respect. But I don't regret speaking up about it or using my experience to create change. Sometimes the hardest moments in our lives become the most meaningful. As the months continued to pass, Maya's influence grew. Major companies reached out to partner with her. She was invited to speak at conferences and schools. Publications wrote articles about her as an example of Generation Z's entrepreneurial spirit and social consciousness. But Maya tried to stay true to her original mission. She still created study guides and test prep videos. She still answered questions from students who were struggling. She remembered what it was like before she was well known. When she was just a teenager trying to help other students succeed, her parents watched with pride as their daughter navigated success with grace and humility. Jennifer often thought about that day when Maya came home from the bank, hurt and shaken. She had been so angry then, so protective of her daughter. But Maya had taken that difficult experience and transformed it into something powerful. Marcus, Maya's father, loved to tell people about his daughter's accomplishments. But he was most proud of how she used her platform to help others, how she turned her pain into purpose. On the 1-year anniversary of the bank incident, Maya posted a reflective video on her channel. She sat in the same spot where she filmed all her videos, looking directly into the camera. 1 year ago today, I experienced discrimination that hurt me deeply, she began. A bank employee treated me like a criminal because of my age and the color of my skin. It was one of the worst days of my life. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But here's what I've learned in the year since then. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. We can let painful experiences define us, or we can use them to fuel positive change. Maya talked about the training program at the bank, the nonprofit she had started, the young entrepreneurs she had helped. She discussed the conversations about discrimination that her story had sparked. Change is slow, Maya acknowledged. Discrimination didn't end because of what happened to me. Young people are still underestimated. People of color still face bias and prejudice. But every time someone stands up, every time someone speaks out, every time an institution commits to doing better, we move a little closer to the world we want to live in. She smiled at the camera. So to anyone watching who has faced discrimination or been underestimated because of your age, your race, your background, or any other reason, your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Stand up for yourself. Document what happens. Speak your truth. And then use your experience to help others. The video ended with Maya holding up a check. It was a scholarship she was awarding through her nonprofit to a young entrepreneur who had faced obstacles similar to her own. This is what we're fighting for, she said. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us. The video received millions of views within days. But more importantly, it inspired hundreds of young people to share their own stories of overcoming discrimination and achieving their dreams despite the obstacles in their way. Maya closed her laptop and looked around her dorm room. On her desk was a framed photo of her with Patricia Reynolds at the last training session they had done together. On her wall was a poster from her TEDx talk, and in her backpack was her camera, ready to capture whatever came next. She thought about the girl she had been a year ago, walking into that bank with excitement and hope. She thought about how that day had changed her, challenged her, and ultimately made her stronger. She thought about Derek Matthews and hoped he had learned and grown from the experience too. Most of all, Maya thought about the future. She had 3 more years at Stanford, a growing platform, a nonprofit to run, and endless possibilities ahead of her. She was no longer just a girl trying to deposit money at a bank. She was an entrepreneur, an advocate, a speaker, and a leader, and she was just getting started. Maya picked up her phone and saw a message from a 14-year-old girl who had watched her videos. The message read, "I started my own tutoring business because of you. I was scared people wouldn't take me seriously because I'm young, but I remembered your story. I've already helped 5 students improve their grades. Thank you for showing me that age is just a number." Maya smiled and typed back, "That's amazing. Keep going. The world needs what you have to offer." She set down her phone and looked out at the Stanford campus again. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful and peaceful. Maya felt grateful for where she was and excited about where she was going. One difficult day at a bank had sparked a journey she never expected. A journey of advocacy, education, and empowerment. A journey that was helping young people across the country find their voices and claim their worth. Maya Johnson had walked into First National Bank as a teenage girl with a dream and a deposit. She had walked out with a mission, and that mission was changing lives, including her own.